call is now being recorded.
John.
Hey, Andrew, sorry about the delay. I had texted you, but maybe it didn't go through. This probably isn't a number to text, huh?
No problem. Yeah, this is a Google Voice number, so.
Oh, cool. Okay, good to know.
No worries.
Yeah, it's been a crazy day. You know, I recorded last night. I'm recording tonight for the live album, so just been kind of running around and going over stuff.
Cool. So you, because I know you're in Oregon now. You're in Portland.
Yeah,
and I saw that you're at Mississippi Studios where you recorded the last album. So you're recording a new live album?
Yeah, new live album. So last night played Mississippi, sort of the return to the original, and then tonight playing Doug Fir and recording tonight also. And actually tonight I feel like will probably be the one that I use. And then last night I just sort of have like some backups in case like one or two of the songs is kind of off or something. But tonight pressure's on for tonight, so.
Okay, well I'm sure the spirits will be with you.
Thanks,
but
man.
I really love your live album. I heard that's the one that Jack Johnson heard while cruising around.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you about the name because I don't know if I'm really into astrology. I don't know if you're into astrology or if it's actually a joke, but I just wanted to see about the significance of Capricorn in retrograde.
Well, that's a good question. Yeah. So I am into astrology in the sense that I lived in Santa Cruz, California for 5 years, so I know a lot about astrology.
Okay.
But I'm into it enough. But originally the title was going to be Mercury in retrograde. Just kidding. Live in Portland. Just because that's such a buzzword, like in my community or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But after talking to some friends of mine, I thought it'd be even funnier and maybe a little bit more like less intense if I made up something that doesn't exist, which is Capricorn in retrograde, which is not a thing, you know.
Right.
And so that would like sort of be a little bit like more I don't know, you know what I mean? Sort of that, so that was kind of the intention behind that.
I see. So it's sort of yep.
Okay.
I was just going to say it sounds like it was sort of a joke baked into it, but still an allusion to, astrology in that tribe.
Yeah, well, originally I always wanted to have an album that was something, just kidding, something, you know. That was like always a thing that I thought would be funny. And so originally it was going to be John Craigie live at Carnegie Hall, just kidding, live at Mississippi Studios. But the problem with that joke it was not everyone knows what Mississippi Studios is, and I just felt like that would cause way too much confusion, especially like a lot of times online, you know, you just see the first half of a thing or whatever. I also didn't want to diss Mississippi Studios or like diss my people, you know, anyone, you know, at all. So so that was like, so then I was like, anyway, I don't want to like bore you with the whole arc of how it came, but that's essentially where it came from.
That's pretty cool.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
So if I may ask, what is your sign? What is your astrological sign?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot. People, a lot of times Capricorns come up to me at the table and they're like, I'm a Capricorn too. I'm actually Gemini.
You're Gemini. Okay, so,
yeah.
Well, we just had a full moon in Gemini. So
oh, cool. That's good to know.
For what it's worth.
Yeah, man.
So I know you're in Portland, and it sounds like you do most of your recording in Portland because I read that you recorded No Rain, No Rose at your house there. Obviously, you recorded the live album there. You're about to record, or you are recording a new live album. It's one to get a sense for the folks that you collaborate with, like how you've met them, like how that comes together. If it's like a real flowy process, or if they're people that you kind of always jam with.
Yeah. I think it was sort of. I wasn't necessarily intending to do this live album here in Portland, but it's just sort of. The audiences here are great, the venues are great, but I think really what it was that I really liked how the last one came out, and the engineer who worked on that is a Portland from a Portland studio, and so it just made sense. I had these really good shows coming up here, and so it made sense to kind of just keep it here, and also yeah, a little more like time and control. So that was part of it for me, at least, if that makes sense.
Got it. Got it. Have you hung out or run into Isaac Brock while living there?
No, I don't think I know who that is.
Oh, well, Isaac Brock. He's the this lead singer or the front man of Modest Mouse. I believe he lives there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I have not run into him. I don't think I know what he looks like, but.
So the reason I ask, and I don't know if this will be resonant or not, but he's been quoted as saying that Portland's a cool city, but a lot of keeping itself weird is actually just allowing people to be complete pieces of shit, and that's exhausting. Didn't know if you had any thoughts on that.
I would imagine he sees a different side of Portland than I do. You know,
Okay.
so I have very nice people I hang around, but that's a very funny way of putting it. I wouldn't necessarily put it that way, but I'm sure, like I said, he probably sees a different side.
Got it. All right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hear you on that. So I want to kind of transition to some songwriting questions.
Cool.
So I either read or I heard you say in a different interview that I think this is the quote. I know that the purpose of music is not to make people feel better, but to make them feel like they are not alone. And I wanted to see if that's still resonant with you, and if you could elaborate a bit on that.
Yeah, I think that's I like that sentiment. I just think that people sometimes get confused by that. But in reality, like, that's why people listen to sad songs when they're sad, and people sometimes they're like, why do you do that? You know, it doesn't cheer you up, but that's not the point. You know, I think the point is what we really are seeking with art in general is sort of like that connection, to be like, right. Oh, they get it. You know what I mean? And so if you're bummed out, you know, Walking on Sunshine isn't really going to like work for you. You know what I mean? If you're familiar with that song.
Yeah.
No offense to that beautiful, amazing, highly influential song on my entire career, but you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't do it, and we all know that. And so I think it's just funny sometimes that we sort of disregard that reality. And so the best music, the stuff that we really like, that everyone really likes, is the stuff that is relatable, or to put it in a better way, like, yeah, it makes us feel like we're not alone in this. So that's what I've always thought the purpose of music is, on all levels, whether it is a happy song or a funny song or a sad song. I also think too, I was just having this conversation with someone about like what happy even means, you know, and how it's like, even happy songs I think all music is sad in a way, you know, because like it's about longing, you know, a good, like, even Walking on Sunshine, probably, if you really break the lyrics down, probably
right.
It's pretty sad, you know.
Well, happiness can't exist without sadness, right?
That's true too, of course, yeah. And even at your happiest, like, the reality of that going away, you know, is there, and so I think there's just like sadness and everything, which is beautiful. It's great.
Right.
Yeah. If that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. So, you know, Rosie and I, we caught you at Forest Hill Stadium playing with Jack Johnson, and there was a bit of this, you kind of led into Mr. Tambourine Man with the story, and then when we saw you at Rockwood, it was very apparent that narrative and storytelling is a part of, you know, what you provide as you know, an entertainer, really a troubadour. And I wanted to see, you know, if that's been an evolution, like if that was always something that you were sort of tapped into, or if that's sort of developed as you've been performing, and if you ever think of yourself as a stand-up comic in a way.
Not so much. I think that there's elements of that, but I think that that's sort of a side part of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
it's nice that people find the stories funny. That's great. I find them funny, you know. But I think that I try not to like write from the place of like, what's the deal with, you know, peanuts or whatever, you know what I mean? And so, but I don't mind the comparison. It's very flattering. I obviously am hugely into that genre, you know.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Is that something you've I mean, is it just something natural? Like it's, you know, so has that developed, or do you feel like that's been an evolution in yourself as a musician, the storytelling?
Well, it's definitely developed, but I mean that was around way before the music. You know, when I was a kid, that was like, you know, I was like class clown, and then I was the guy who would tell the stories and stuff.
Got it. Okay.
So I think that's older than my, you know, I mean, that's older than the music. So that came more natural to me. Definitely way more natural. The music was a lot harder for me. I wasn't really naturally. I'm still not that good, but I was like very not good when I started, you know, as musically, and so that took a little bit longer. I feel like that wasn't really like inborn at all.
Got it.
So does that make sense?
So this was a question I wrote down that I think is, you know, related. So you didn't. It sounds like you didn't always see yourself as a musician.
Definitely not. I mean, as a little kid, definitely not. I was always obsessed with music and really into it, but I didn't think that would be a possibility. You know, there wasn't much like in my family or in my community. It was more of like I grew up in like Southern California in LA, kind of just like in the suburbs, and so it was more of like a sports, you know, go to school kind of thing. And music at that time was like very large. You know, Pearl Jam was like my favorite band and stuff. So it wasn't something that like a kid, like no one I knew played music or even was in bands. It was kind of random.
Okay. So what sparked you to pursue music full time, or was there a moment when it was apparent to you that you were or are a musician?
Yeah, I think, so the obsession just like grew and grew and grew into my teenage years, you know, and it was like all I did, you know, was listen to music and stuff. And so, I think the dream like started getting bigger and bigger. And then, one of my friends, you know, my dear friend of mine who I really credit for having a huge influence on me, he was a little out of the box, you know, he wasn't like the normal kid in my community. He was really artistic. He was like, my community was pretty white when I was a kid. He was Middle Eastern, you know, so his family was immigrants. He just had a different way about him, and he wasn't really buying into sort of like the normal kind of, sort of, you know, suburban way. He just had a cool way about him. And so he got a guitar around when we were 15, and, he's really talented artist. And so he's playing, and we were talking about music a lot, and I really looked up to him. And so one day he just was kind of showing me, he's like, you know, it's not that hard. Yeah, I was like really idolizing him in the fact that he played guitar, and he was really a smart kid, and he's like, hey, it's not that hard. And so he started showing me some chords and stuff. And that was like the pivotal moment, because then the moment I knew that it was like possible, changed everything for me.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
And
you know,
so,
I think a lot of people have those moments, you know. That's not unique to me. I think that a lot of times you just need someone to be like, yeah, you can do this, which I think a lot of people get in school. And I think even more so now with the internet and stuff. You know, I was born in the 80s, so it's like the internet was around when I was a kid, but like not as much, you know, and not as plentiful as it is now. By the time I started playing, the internet helped a lot with, you know, getting chords and things like that. But you know, I also didn't have that much access to music. I was listening to like the same 3 CDs like as a kid, and whatever was on MTV.
Do you remember which ones those were?
Yeah, probably like Pearl Jam, Versus, I think, or any.
Versus,
probably any of those
okay.
first. Yeah, or those first 3 Pearl Jam albums were like pretty much nonstop for me. And then I got really into the Beatles, the Blue album, which is like the greatest hits.
Weezer?
No, sorry. The Beatles have like a Blue album, which is
okay. Yeah.
You know that one? It's the greatest hits, like 66 to 70.
Right.
Or 67
Right,
to
where
70,
they're
I think.
where
So it's
they're
like,
looking down from the
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
so it's like Sergeant Pepper on, that was a big, huge influence. And then, but also like more 90s stuff, you know. I'm trying to think like what else I listened to a ton at that time. A lot of Green Day. I remember Dookie was a big one for all of us. Yeah, a lot of Nirvana, obviously huge. The Unplugged was really big for me. I love that record. I'm trying to think who else. Yeah, a lot of that sort of like grunge stuff, Stone Temple Pilots, Soundgarden, but also some of that like more softer stuff. I was into. I'm trying to think now. Yeah, but a lot of those '90s albums. Also like
yep.
Joshua Tree was big. I remember that was really big.
Too.
Yeah, that I think that one was probably the most. Octoon Baby. That one came out kind of when I was first started listening to CDs. That was my sister had really great taste too. She was listening to a lot of '80s stuff, so I was also listening to The Cure and Depeche Mode and Duran Duran and Talking Heads and stuff. She was really like way cooler than me, you know. So she had like really good taste. You know what I mean?
What do you think? Yeah, what do you think your like least obvious musical influence is, and where might we hear that?
Well, you know what it was. So all that stuff was kind of I was getting really into music itself, but it wasn't until I got the guitar at 16. I was doing that, and then it wasn't until I got like the 90s were like not a good time for like the songwriter. Jewel was sort of late 90s. Tracy Chapman, and even then that was like that was nothing against Jewel, but that was looked on as like mom music, you know. And so it wasn't. I didn't like the early 90s was not like Dylan was like not cool, and so I don't think I knew Bob Dylan in the sense of like a historical figure, but I never heard his music. And it wasn't until somebody gave me Freewheeling when I was a senior in high school. And so that kind of start was the catalyst for, you know, my songwriting and stuff like that. And then I just went deeper into that. So then I was doing Joni Mitchell and then John Prine, and then, you know, it kind of just went deeper into that kind of that mode. And because I had like the sort of sense of the sense of humor, that was also a big deal. I could kind of work with that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that you'll be playing at the Troubadour next year, next year.
That's really exciting for me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Joni Mitchell, that's one of her haunts. James Taylor, someone that you reference in your songs. Are you excited about that? Did you feel that connection? I also know in your live album you make the statement that, you know, it's now our time, our generation's time to create our own history. But I mean, are you excited about that? Did you feel that connection?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, I'm very aware of that with all these things.
Yeah. Nice. I also read that you studied math, and I wanted to know if you think that math influences your creative process.
I get asked that a lot. You know, I think in some ways yes, but in also some ways no. I think that more so, it's like I think that was just I was in Santa Cruz also, so it was more of a hippie type of math.
Okay.
But, you know, but I do think that a lot of fractals.
Okay.
A lot of looking at pineapples and shit, you know, getting high and like looking at ferns and stuff and being like, what?
Right.
You know. But yeah, you know, I think I think most songwriters and most musicians have like that sort of basic math brain where you're kind of like breaking things down and you know, things with lyrics and verses and choruses. Any kind of songwriter, especially too. You know, and storytelling too is also somewhat mathematical in the sense that like more not so much in what we think of math in this world of like algebra and stuff like that, but more so in just putting things together and just structure, you know what I mean? I also think architecture is something that I was having a conversation recently about architecture and how similar they are, in the sense that, like, when I don't know anything about architecture other than it's beautiful, but, like, I was thinking about this, about how crazy it is to visualize, like, how a building's going to look, you know, while you're sort of before you make it. And I think to a lesser extent songwriting is similar, you know, knowing this sort of like general vibe you want, but knowing that you need to build this foundation and kind of like the structure of it. It's, I don't know, I'm kind of getting out there.
That's
you know
cool.
what I'm saying?
Yeah. You're the architect.
I think so, yeah, in a way, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to transition to some couple questions about performing and tour, and then maybe some fun miscellaneous questions before wrapping up.
Sure.
So I wanted to, I heard that Jack Johnson came out. You guys spent some time together. I didn't know if there's any favorite activities you did, or if there was a phrase that Jack would commonly use.
That's a great question. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. Probably the funnest thing we did is we went to go see John Mayer. We had a night off, and John Mayer was playing at the Gorge the night before us, and that was just sort of like ridiculous, because that's so like out of my. I'm not saying that I don't like John Mayer. I'm just saying that's not something I would normally go see. You know, that's almost like the opposite of, like, you know, where I'm coming from or what my people are used to, and so. But more, you know, sort of more so in Jack's vein, but even still, like, you know, John's like a lot more of a pop star than Jack is. And so it was a trip to go to that show with him, you know, sort of like, these are like two elder statesmen of, like, you know, modern, songwriting, I guess you could say, although I find them vastly different. But that was a very surreal night, and just kind of like sitting there with Jack watching this other like mega star, and then getting to see like the huge differences between the two of them that I never would have thought, you know what I mean? So just the way that they do their stage setup, the way that they have their like lights and everything, you know, just like so much about it was so interesting. That was fun. We also went rafting in Bend, which was really
wow.
fun. Not as interesting of a story, but yeah, his I think some raft company kind of gave us all free rafting, so that was cool.
Nice. What was that, just like for the moment, or is that something that they often do?
You know, I feel it felt spur of the moment, but I feel like Jack has so many people that are kind of he's got tour managers and things like that. I feel like that was set up ahead of time. I think probably what happened was that rafting company saw that Jack was playing, reached out to his people, offered the thing, and Jack's people probably said, if we have time, yes. And so it was just, I didn't hear about it till the day before, and I feel like Jack also was kind of on that page. But anyway, yeah, it was, I think that's kind of how they roll, you know.
Nice.
I think when you're at that level, a lot of people are trying to give you free shit, you know.
You got to watch out what they give you.
Yeah.
So perhaps corny question, perhaps obvious, but what percentage of the time do you perform with your eyes open?
I'd say 2% when I'm making the joke about having my eyes open.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
What's the most unexpected or craziest house apartment situation where you've stayed while on tour?
Oh, that's a good question. Geez, I don't know. Craziest house situations then?
Yeah, or like, you know, sleeping on a concrete floor, or like legs hanging out a window or some doors, or I don't know. Maybe
I can tell you.
that.
I can tell you a funny story. I wouldn't want to throw any of my hosts under the bus. You know, I mean, I've definitely stayed some nasty places, but I wouldn't want to complain because they were nice enough to give me a place. You know,
Right.
But I can tell you a cute anecdote that doesn't you know offend anyone. But what happened was that many years ago I was playing in this town called Winter Park, which is in Colorado, ski town.
Florida? Oh, okay.
Yeah, Winter Park. Yeah, yeah, it's up in the mountains, and it was cold, you know. And I didn't finish the bar gig, and I was going to sleep in I had an Astro van at the time with a bed in it, so I was going to go sleep in it. But I looked at my phone and it said it was 1 degree outside, and I was like,
Fahrenheit.
fuck that, yes, Fahrenheit, yes. And so I was just like, I'll die, I'm from California. I mean, you probably won't die, but I was like, I'll die. So I went back into the bar, and I was talking to the bartender. I was like, hey man, I don't want to seem like pushy, but like, can I stay? Do you have a couch or something? Like, I'm afraid I'll die tonight. And this is back when there was no way I could afford a hotel. I think the bar probably paid me like $50, and that was like I had to eat and shit. And so, he said, sure. He's like, I gotta close the bar. It's gonna be like 2 hours. He's like, here's my address. Door's unlocked. Here's where the guest room is. So it was awesome. So I went there and got to the guest room, and I was like, man, this was freezing in the guest room. But I was like, well, it's better than being outside. So I got into bed, and curled up and stuff. Woke up in the middle of the night, and there was snow all over the bed. And I was like, what the fuck? And I looked over, and like one of the windows, the blinds were down, but one of the windows was wide open, and snow had been blowing in on me all night. And so would have been better off, just sleeping in my car. At least I would have been closed off. But I just went over and shut the window. Yeah. So that was a weird night for sure.
Yeah, there you go. All right. If you had to describe your music as a color, what color would it be?
Oh, I don't know. That's a hard question. If I had to describe my music as a color, what color would it be? I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if I got one for you.
You got a mulligan. Okay.
Favorite
favorite Nickelback. Yeah, that's fine. Favorite Nickelback song.
Oh, definitely the entire discography. You can't pick a favorite Nickelback song. They're all so good.
Right. Okay. Do you believe the apocalypse is over? And so what was the apocalypse?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't, that was more of a, metaphor for like all the hippies who were talking about the 2012 Mayan, sort of end of the Mayan calendar kind of thing. You remember that?
Right.
And I think some of the people that were a little more misguided were kind of like, excited for it, cause they were like, cool, Babylon will crumble and, I won't have to work this stupid job anymore. And so that was sort of more of a reference to that, is that, I should have put quotes around apocalypse, I guess.
Got it. What is an unusual habit or absurd thing that you love to do?
Absurd. I don't know. I like to practice my stories in the car by myself. That feels kind of absurd. If I have a story to tell, I want to make sure I'm telling it right, so I'll practice. I'm by myself in the car. I'll just talk to myself. You
record into your phone?
No, I don't do that. People ask me a lot if I write them down or if I record them, but that's not necessary. You have to just kind of like sort of figure out. I think if you start doing stuff like that, then you're going to sound like a robot. You don't want the shit to be scripted. A good story just like has its story to it, and then you kind of like fill it in as you tell it. I think that I always tell people like it's dangerous. Like I have some friends who are really into like the Moth and shit, those storytelling podcasts. And they really want to get into it, and so they will like they'll start to like practice and like write out their story, and that's you can tell when someone's telling a story if it's like a speech, you know what I mean?
Right.
Which I think
the
you want
gel.
to avoid. So
right.
But I do think you need to tell it a bunch of times, because you kind of like you have to let it come out of your mouth and like hear how that sounds and make sure you're like getting your pauses and everything. And in reality, you really have to tell it in front of audiences. But before that, for me, I like to kind of, I just like to kind of get it out there and see like how to tell it, if that makes sense.
Got it. All right, so this is the last question I have, and
all right, cool.
I got it from Tim Ferriss. So if you listen to his podcast, it'll sound familiar. But if you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it say and why?
That is a good question. I don't know, man. I'd have to think about that one probably. Let's see. Billboard. Anything? and a link to my website is probably too cocky. Just kidding. Too cocky. Yeah, no, I don't know. I think that maybe just like be nice to each other. That's probably cliche, but that's what I would say.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to be in the interview, or anything that you'd like brought up?
I think you got it, man. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to editing this and putting it together. Do you want me to send you a draft? You and Phil a draft? Or?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
That'd be very sweet of you. Thank you. And then if you need any pictures or anything like that, Phil can get you. You know what I mean?
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Last thing, would you want me to mention that you're working on these new albums, or is that kind of hush hush?
No, you can mention that. That's totally fine.
Okay. Great. Well, best of luck with the performance tonight. I'm looking forward to hearing those live recordings.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Alrighty. Much love.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
Much love, John. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you too, man. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.